Good evening, good evening, good evening, all. Just like I've been away for a long time. I didn't broadcast yesterday, which is why I know I feel this. I'm actually give it about a minute. I usually like to get here a couple of minutes early. So I'm gonna give it another minute before we kick off tonight. Pre-engagement. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, pre-engagement. When I get me a couple of pennies to rub together, I'm gonna have me a whole. I'm gonna hit this button. See you in a minute, and it's gonna give you my intro music and a whole little video vignette. But until then, you just get to look at me for another minute before we kick off. Hope you're all having a good week so far and a wonderful May. If you live anywhere near me, I hope you're staying hydrated. It is warm, warm on top of warm. It's one thing to be in the 90s. I grew up in California, triple digits, sometimes weeks at a time. But when you add that humidity, it's a whole nother beast. It's a whole nother beast. So I hope you're staying hydrated, ladies and gentlemen who are and anywhere where it's warm out. Please take care of yourselves. All right, let's get into it. I don't usually like to give too much time. Lollygagging is a term they used to say when I was a young man. Here's what I posted, and if you're on YouTube, you of course wouldn't have seen this. Excuse me, but this is what I posted on Facebook. Pre-engagement counseling. For many, that point between becoming an exclusive dating couple and formal engagement is a crucial period. Questions abound, while answers are not always forthcoming. We'll talk about that. Are not always forthcoming because so few, by that junction in the relationship, want to be guilty of messing it up or ruining a good thing. Any of that sounds familiar? So we need to chat about the type of conversations that need to be happening even before this period of time, and especially during. We will discuss the emotional impact and potential stigmas for having to call off an engagement. We definitely will have that conversation, and I know a few people who have done it, and it is quite a task to say, I'm not going to. I said yes, but now I'm having some change of heart. I even think just saying cold feet might be a little too quick. Just being so quick to go, it's cold feet. Just having cold feet. You know, I get it. I understand why people call it cold feet. I think it might be a little bit more to it than that, but we'll talk about it. And talk back to me, people. Share this out. I always say share this out. If you don't follow me on YouTube, come on over, click, and join us on YouTube. We've got well over 200 videos, probably pushing 300 now. We broadcast at least once a week, and we have been for almost 4 years. So we've been at this for a minute. So come on over and check us out on YouTube. That said, let's get in it. So pre-engagement counseling, this is not necessarily something you have not heard, but it doesn't get as much play for obvious reasons as premarital counseling. And not that people are doing either one. Just to be honest with you. It's not so much that people are doing either one, but in terms of something that you would hear premarital counseling before you hear pre-engagement. So the first thing we've got to do is ask ourselves, why? Why is it so rare that people, would likely get pre-engagement counseling? Seriously, here's the question. Whether you're watching me live or watching this back, venture a guess. Why do you think so few would want to take the time? And I told you, in between okay, officially becoming a couple, exclusive dating, whatever you say it. And I've kind of questioned people on their lingo with that. You know, we're officially dating, and I won't get into that whole thing with dating. You know, because that's a whole rabbit hole by that's a rabbit hole by itself. But right at that point, when the man, I guess in this case, says, "Would you be my boo exclusively? Be my woman? Be my girl? Be my lady?" Whatever the phrase, I don't know what the phrase is. Whatever the phrase that your man said to you, or man you said to her, and said, let's make this exclusive. Okay, right there. From that point forward, whether you had this conversation or not, because you could disagree on the basis that you didn't have this conversation, but it doesn't change the fact that having been married, I'm going to say this, and there might be some ladies who disagree with me, but I get the sneaky suspicion, particularly for women who want to get married. Let me throw that in. At that point of exclusivity, you might not necessarily think it right at that point, but there's some thought that this is the one. So it begs the question, when you say this is the one, you mean he's the one to date forever? See, I did that because I knew if I said it the other way, you would have said, well, no, Gabe, I didn't think that right away. But you trying to tell me you thought to yourself, he's the one to date forever and never do anything other than date? Come on. No. Truth be told, whether you said, I want to marry this man or not, in your mind, you certainly didn't say, I want to date him forever. I want to date him exclusively forever. Well, Gabe, not every woman wants to get married. Yeah, but let me say it again, and let me see if I get somebody bold enough to disagree with me. But are you looking to date exclusively for the rest of your life? And if you're honest with yourself that no, even if you may not necessarily want to go all the way to marriage, but you don't necessarily want to just date exclusively forever or for the rest of your earthly life. Fellas, I hope you're listening. I don't think I've met any woman, even if she doesn't necessarily want to get married. And we can talk about what that looks like, right? She may not necessarily want to get married, but she might be cool. And I don't care what your religious disposition is for this conversation tonight. She might want to live together as a way of trying to take I call it taking a side street to marriage. That's just me. Don't get mad. That's my view. We can cohabitate, but that's still far more serious than just dating exclusively. You live at your house, I live in my house, and we see each other from time to time, and we talk on the phone every night. But if you've been on the planet as long as I have, we all know that's cool. I'm not knocking it, but that still ain't the level of seriousness that most women want to see. After a while, and statistics say 2 years. Some don't even make it 2 years, but statistically, usually by 2 years, you start wondering to yourself, is this going to go any further? And so that phrase, any further, is why this particular broadcast is extraordinarily intriguing. And maybe for some of you, very important. Because the fact is, even for men, there are men who don't want to date exclusively forever. Especially if he feels like he found his one, his day one, his boo, his love thing, whatever the cotton picking nickname. If he thinks he's got her, and he also doesn't want anyone else to get her, yeah, we think that way sometimes. We ain't gonna tell you that, but we do. So if he's thinking that, then you got to go to the next level at some point, which is why, again, we have this conversation, because it is asking us to probe into, or to at least look over the fence at engagement, to glance over the engagement fence, over at what we think is marriage on the other side. Now, let me say this, my second thing. I think we devalue engagement, at least in my generation. And I'm guilty of it. I'm guilty of it. Once upon a time, again, not necessarily my generation. I'm not saying, I can't speak for everyone, but we really love things instantly. We really do. Every one of my marriages came relatively quickly. As a matter of fact, I didn't go a whole year in any one engagement. In any one, okay, will you marry me? There wasn't a whole year that passed. And we can get into the reasons. I'm not going to get into them tonight. Why you think, I think that is. But the truth of the matter is, once upon a time, you would wait. A year would be almost a given. And it could be in part because weddings, particularly once you get into a certain age, is not as important anymore. So if you feel like this my boo thing, see what I did? This my day one. It's my love, my heart. What are we waiting for? And now it's so much easier to go get your license on and boom, go before a justice of the peace. And in fact, if I'm not mistaken, depending on what state you live in, you can just simply have a non-preacher. You don't have to have a preacher. You can have a friend, because all it is the justice of the peace signs off. So you can have anybody you want expedite the ceremony. So I will say tonight that I believe one of the reasons why engagement is of lesser value than a generation or two before is because weddings are, particularly once you get to a certain age, you're like, I've been married before. I've been in a major relationship before. I'm too old for all that. I ain't got that kind of money. Whatever. Why don't we just get married, keep that money, and use it for something else? And so the notion of a long-term engagement, you didn't know I knew that word, did you? You didn't know I knew that phrase. Why have a long-term engagement? But let's be honest. Let's say it the way we're really thinking it. Why have an engagement at all? Now, I'm sitting here as a person who had relatively short engagement. Relatively short. My first marriage, I asked a woman to marry me on Christmas Eve, 1993, and we were married by August 5th. Now that was 29 years ago, 28 years ago. So my memory, it was in August 9th, August 5th, somewhere in there. I know there's somebody's birthday, and then we was married somewhere in there. Okay, so that wasn't even a year. And then subsequently, married a couple more times, came even shorter. So there clearly was no valuing the engagement period. It was, will you marry me? Well, what's the circumstance? This is this. Why don't we go ahead and get married? Okay. Now I'm using me. I'm not talking about you, though I am talking to you. So, Gabe, what's your first bit of advice? I think you got to put some value on engagement. Or be honest. It's just, will you marry me? Yes. Walk in, get married. See, at some point or another, if engagement, now engagement is basically that period, like I said, technically between, I think, becoming an exclusive couple. But, okay, I'll go with the classic. It's the proposal to the date of marriage. That's in the engagement period, okay? At least in America. So if the engagement period is, will you marry me at some point? Yes, I will. And that marks the beginning of engagement. And then, do you? I do. Do you still? I still do. You're married. How do we put value on that? How do we restore value to that? How do we make that period of time important again? How do we do it? How do we make that period of time significant? Now, here's the question you should be thinking and asking me. I'll help you out. Gabe, do we even need to make that time important? Do we? Maybe the reason why for many people it's been done away with because that time has no particular value. That's a great question. I'm glad you asked me. I'm glad you asked me. And I can't answer for everyone. You're absolutely right. For some, they don't value that time. In my personal experience, I didn't put a lot of time and energy and value in it, and I'm going to tell you why, and you're not going to like what I'm going to say, not because I'm talking about me, but because what I'm going to say is likely going to describe somebody watching me. Trust me, it will. But it begs the question, should we put any value on that time from will you marry me to the time that you say, I do? Should we even call it engagement anymore? Should we consider it a specific set of time at all? In other words, the word fiance, shouldn't we just toss it? We should toss it. We should get rid of it. Right? Right? If we're not going to value the time from the asking the question to the time of the I do, why even call it engagement? Why call each other, why give promise rings? Why say fiance? Just say that's my man, that's my woman. Don't say that's my fiance because then that's connected to engagement. But my broadcast tonight, see, I got you, it's actually pre-engagement. I don't even want to focus on the period between will you marry me and I do. I want to focus on that period between will you be my boo, my girl, my dude, and the possibility of asking the question, will you marry me? Because to me, engagement will only mean as much to us as that time of becoming an exclusive couple. That is, gotcha. If becoming an exclusive couple is supposed to mean anything, it only means something on the basis, watch this, of two things. The significance to the people in it and the people around it, yes, because you're not a couple isolated. You have family and friends who you share that with, and the future of that relationship. Let me do it again. There's two significances or two things that should be important. Some of you are dating right now. You're dating somebody and you think it might become exclusive. Let me go ahead and give you some pre-engagement counseling right now. But Gabe, it ain't even exclusive. I know. But I'm going to go ahead and give this to you for free. If you have any concern to your relationship future, you're going to have to put a weight on the potential relationship you are in right now. Not just significance to you, but also significance to others. For example, if you have children, if you have grandchildren or great-grandchildren, well, Gabe, they ain't got nothing to do with it. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. I'm going to show you. Ready? Because let's say you're 50 years old. Let's say your kids are grown and you got grandkids. You still with me? Keep breathing because I'm going to come down your street. Ready? You're not going to stay 50. Guess what's going to happen? If you keep living, you might hit 60. If you keep living, you're going to hit 70. And if your new husband, potentially, your new boo, and you get married, you don't think that relationship is going to have an impact on them? Because guess what? When you go to the doctor, it used to be you call your daughter, you call your son. It used to be when you put on emergency contact, you call your sisters, your brothers. but now you're married, or you're thinking about this potential relationship could, in the future, I just said that, end up in marriage. So you have to start thinking about that right now, and you're just going out on dates. You have to start really looking over at that dude, at that woman, and saying to myself, will I allow this person to have enough significance in my life as my husband or my wife in the future, potentially, that when the time comes to decide to pull the plug, that's not decided by my children. That's not decided by my grandchildren. That's not decided by my living siblings. That's decided by my husband or my wife. And that dude, that woman that you are just talking to, but you know you're getting exclusive and you're getting close to, and you could marry and have a future with, you better look at them twice. Here's some pre-engagement counseling that you didn't even see coming. We don't want to stop and deal with the reality, because typically when you get married, the idea is, even though, yes, the divorce rate is high, I get it, but typically you get married with the notion that that person may be the one who is bequeathed of you, is the one who survives you or you survive them. They are the ones who tells the doctor whether or not to pull the plug. They are the ones who decides whether or not you do end up in the burial plot you already paid for 20 years ago. They are far more significant than you really want to think about, because next week we're going to talk about premarital counseling, and hopefully by the time I get done tonight, you ain't going to need premarital counseling, because you're going to get pre-engagement. Do you understand that you're talking about the person who is supposed to be your future to the end of your days? See, the reason why I believe personally we devalue engagement is because we don't want to have the conversations about how important the people are going to be. We love the immediate importance. See what I'm saying? Are you tracking with me? In other words, we love the immediacy of the relationship. We can call each other. We can text each other. We love that we can be in each other's Netflix and chill. We love that stuff. But we don't want to deal with the fact that as we're getting closer and closer and closer, and maybe even thinking about marriage, that's going to be the person who might be spoon feeding you if you have a stroke. That's going to be the person who comes into the room if you're having a heart attack, that's got to call the ambulance to get you to the hospital to save your life. And so you got to be thinking in that way as you get closer and closer together. So it's not just your importance here between you two, it's your importance to the people around you, because you're going to have to communicate to them when you say he popped the question, or when you say, fellas, I think she's going to be the one, what you're telling your children and your grandchildren and your mamas and your daddies if they're still with you, and your siblings if they're still with you. That person is about to become potentially more important to me than anyone else walking on the planet, because that's what marriage requires. Now, I know that's old school, and my generation clearly don't understand that. I've been divorced more than once. See what I'm saying? I told you weren't going to like it. I told you I was going to share my experience and you weren't going to track with me, but you can't do nothing with it. Because the fact is, the reason why divorce runs so rampantly, in some sense, you have to admit, is because we have devalued the whole process, not just marriage itself. We have devalued the whole process, including engagement and pre-engagement, which means dating as well. We've devalued the whole thing. And because we don't give it the value, we don't want to deal with the weight of what somebody like Gabe is saying right now. Gabe, I don't want to hear you say that. Of course you don't. That's why you don't get pre-engagement and premarital counseling. Because somebody like me is going to ask you What kind of weight and value are you laying on this? Well, I don't want, what did I read? I don't want to mess this up. I like the feeling of Netflixing and chilling. I like the feeling of holding hands, walking on the beach. I like the feeling of posting my pictures of us in Cozumel and Cancun. And I don't mean no disrespect. And if this is you, stay with me. Don't get mad at me. But do you know how many pictures I've seen of bootangs on beaches, drinking Mai Tais and other special drinks, eating fantastic dinners, and they didn't last. They didn't even walk across the stage. They didn't even stand before the judge or the preacher or the priest. They didn't even make it through engagement. They didn't even make it to engagement. Now, why am I mentioning that? So I can make fun of people? No. My heart breaks when I see it. That's why I'm not quick to click on. I don't care what you describe. He's the best man, and all the other men should step back because he makes my life complete. Don't tell me that until I see your 10-year anniversary pictures. No disrespect, but as much as high as divorce is, why are you bragging and y'all ain't been talking to each other for 6 days, 6 weeks, let alone 6 months, and you're bragging? And you know you've been in more than one relationship and you bragged on them too. And here you are bragging on the next one, next woman, next man, and you can't even get to engagement. Gabe, I brag if I want to. You go ahead and brag. But again, your relationship is not just you and the person. Your relationship is the people around you. As a matter of fact, part of the value of a relationship are the people in the lives of the people in the relationship. I have a son. If I were to get into a relationship, no disrespect, ladies, but understand my son has to put value on that relationship. He has to. He has to, whether he's grown or not, he has to put some value. Why? Because if he disrespected her, he'd have to deal with me. So he would be required to put some value. Now, he doesn't put the same value that I do because he's not in that relationship in that way, but he would have to put some value. If I had grandkids, they would have to put some value because she becomes grandma if we get married. And she should be respected, even if they don't call her grandma. But she would have to be respected because if I'm grandpa and she's my wife, that's grandma. Period. Whether they call her that per se or not. So you have to understand when it comes to pre-engagement, my point is clear. You've got to put some weight on this dating that you're doing, and you're getting exclusive and you're getting close. Now, if you plan on taking the side street I call cohabitation, I'm not talking about you tonight. See me later. Maybe I'll do a whole broadcast on that. But the fact is, if we're talking about, you really want to get married, even if you go the way of cohabitation, but your hope, your dream, man, woman, is to get married, I'm telling you right now, you have to really think about sitting down, getting on the phone, Zoom call. I don't know how you're going to do it, but talking to somebody who can really dig some things out and get you thinking long and hard, not just you by yourself, you as a couple. And I think you ought to do it pre-engagement. Now, we're going to do pre-marriage because some of you are already engaged. And you might be trying to get a little nugget. Well, keep watching. So let's look at some things. Here are some things that I think you got to really talk about. And I'm going to do 35 and up. That's kind of the age bracket I do. If you're younger than that, stay with me. Stay with me. But 35 and up. Let's say you're 35 years old. If you're 35 years old, I would suspect at this point you've worked some kind of job. I know there's always exceptions, but you've worked some kind of job. You've made some kind of money. Stay with me. Ready? And you potentially created some debt. I said the D word, and I wasn't cussing. If you were at least 35 and up, you might very well, matter of fact, 35, 25 to 40, 25 to 45, depends on what kind of debt you got, is debt years. Because that's also college years. You can drop down to 18 if you want to in that sense when you say university or college. It's called student loans. And for some, unfortunately, it's credit cards. It's that time of having children. Now, you may have school-age children by 35. True. Some may be middle school. Some may be elementary school. Some may be high school, moving towards high school. 35 and up. Now you're talking about, you know, let's say 40, you got some high schoolers, potentially. And you want to get into a relationship. Cool. Cool. Men, women, cool. Okay, I'm not knocking that. But you got to have some conversations, starting with you. And you got to look at your finances. Gabe, are you serious? I thought we'd wait on the finance conversation until we get to the point of getting married. No. You got to have a pre-engagement counseling session where you get really, really real about your financial situation. I wish to this day that somebody sat me down at 18 years old and said, Gabe, you are broke. You have no money. You have no job. Why did you ask that woman to marry you? And challenge me, even if I would have been stubborn and mad and angry, having nothing to do with her, but said, Gabe, somebody that I trusted, that knew I trusted them and said, Gabe, I know you say you want to marry the girl. Yes. Now, I didn't tell anybody my plan, so nobody could have stopped me from asking her. I get it. But at least, now that's, I know, post-engagement, that's premarital. I'm just giving a little nugget so I can make my point. But I wish somebody would have said, Gabe, and you're gonna live where? And how much money do you have? And since you're not going to college right now, what kind of job do you think you can get in 1992, 93? That's how far back it goes, ladies and gentlemen. 30 years ago. What kind of job are you planning on getting? Because you're talking about supporting a wife. Carl's Jr., cleaners. What else? Oh, I had a couple of them. Didn't want to do them. Didn't like them. I quit them. No, I told you I was going to tell you about me. I told you. Well, Gabe, you was 18, 19 years old. It's understandable. It's understandable. You made good. Oh, yeah, I went to college, Merced College, got my AA degree, got a job right after college. You're right. Worked, full-time job, group home, 6 nights a week, 9-hour shifts. Yeah. We moved into our own place and then moved into a better place. That relationship was extremely difficult, and obviously it didn't last for a number of reasons. And I can tell you, money was one of them. Money was one of them. It wasn't the only one of my relationships that had money problems, but it was one of the main ones. It was probably the one exclusively where money was almost at the top of the list. Because the arguments that ensued, well, we lived with my parents till I was 23. 4 years. 4 years. Why? Because I didn't have no money. And I went to college. Well, now we're married and you try to figure it out, right? Right? See? And the marriage wasn't doomed strictly on the money, but be honest, be real. You need to have a real tough conversation. And at some point, you got to start with yourself and you got to say, not just how much do I make, we're good. No, How much do I make? How much do I owe? Let me get these with the Equifax and all, whatever. I can't remember all the 3 reporters to my credit, and let me get my credit score and let me see what I got going on here. Men, stop trying to pop questions, putting rings on layaway, because you got to secure your boo thing. You got to put your ring on layaway, and you know you living in your mama's basement. I don't mean no disrespect. I've lived with my parents as a grown man. Before I moved back here, I was living with my parents. But I also wasn't trying to ask somebody to marry me. You see? You see? I got probably $40,000, $50,000 worth of school debt. I'm not in a position to start talking about marriage. You understand? Therefore, watch me now, and I know somebody ain't gonna like it. That means I'm not in a position to even talk about exclusive dating. You understand? There's a practicality to this, but because we don't value marriage the way we used to, we don't value any of it. I said what I said. Disagree with me. If I truly value marriage, then I've got to value engagement. If I truly value engagement, then I've got to value exclusive dating. Well, if I got debt up the wazoo, which I do, not proud of it, it's just what it is. I'm 48 years of age. I've got tremendous debt, and I'm working on trying to figure out how to get it paid. I just got this job. God has blessed me to make a couple of good dollars, but I got debt. So even though it's a couple of good dollars, I got a couple of good dollars up against some debt. See? Some of y'all on Facebook talking about, God bless me, I got a double portion, I've got 25 raises, and you got student loans, and you ain't having no intention of paying your student loans. And you already looking at a house, and you already talking about a more expensive car, and you already ready to run to Cancun and run to Puerto Vallarta and all those places, and you know you got debt. How dare you? And then you want to have the nerve to talk about you ready to get married. And you know you are not even, at least, watch this now, at least making an inroad to pay the debt. How about bankruptcy? I don't believe in bankruptcy. Well, bankruptcy ain't a belief system. Bankruptcy is a means of consolidating your bills so that you can begin to at least address your debt, so that way when somebody asks you to marry them, or you want to ask someone to marry you, and they say, let's have the conversation, you ain't got to be like, that ain't none of your business. No, you can be like, sure, take a look. This is how much I make. This is my monthly bills, and this is my debt, and this is my savings. And if you don't trust somebody enough to show them your savings account, because you're going to have some money to hide, why are you talking about getting engaged? If money is an issue for you, you are not engagement marriage material. I don't care what you look like. I don't care how much you like Netflix and chill. I don't care how fun you are to be around. You are not marriage material, because you already have a place where you're likely going to lie to your potential spouse because you don't want them to know. There it is. Swallow it down. I ain't got to touch another subject, because I believe that's at the heart of many of the issues that we see. Because that speaks to character, that speaks to morals, that speaks to intention, that speaks to all kind of internal things that are not always easy to unearth. If you are not ready to let somebody in to look at how bad you are with money, don't accept the ring, ladies, and don't offer it, fellas. That's some free pre-engagement counseling for your backside. I feel like preaching. Is there anything else? Yeah, of course. Of course. What if you got children? Like my son, 12 years old. Again, pre-engagement. Are you having candid conversations with yourself about your parenting methods, about your parenting philosophy? What if you're raising your grandkids? Oh, you're not exempted. You might be 60, 70 years old, but you're raising your grandkids. And I'm not talking about no babysitting 3 or 4 days in a row. That's a whole other conversation. I mean, you're raising them, but you want to have you a boo thing because you feel like you at that time in your life. Cool. But you got to get real. What's your parenting or reparenting philosophy? You're going to ask for someone to come into your, I got my son now. I have joint custody of my son. I have to look at that. If I'm not ready to allow any woman to have influence in his life beyond his mother, it would be wrong for me. And I'm not saying this is true. I'm just telling you, if I don't want any other woman to have an impact on him in a motherly way beyond his mother, then guess what? I am not going to put a woman in a position so I can be telling her, don't tell my son nothing. That would be stupid. That would be ignorant. That would be foolish. So if you know your parenting as a single mother, single father is you want to be exclusive and they already got a mother or a father and you don't want nobody to say nothing to your son or daughter at all about nothing, especially in the terms of discipline, you need to stay single. You don't even need to exclusively date because exclusive dating gives rise. See how I started? See where I am? Exclusive dating starts suggesting to each other and to the people around you that you have a future. Why are you even entertaining exclusive dating if there is no future? I know I said it and I'm saying it again. If you don't really intend to spend your life with this person, then you're really still just dating. You're just dating. You're calling it exclusive because it just means you're not dating anyone else, but you're still just dating. If there is no future intention, you are just dating. And I don't care how important you try to make that, you're just dating. I told you, get mad, I don't care. If you have no intentions of marrying that person, you're just dating. And that's fine, that's cool, but don't walk around here trying to convince everybody that you all about that marriage thing, you all about that serious thing, and all you're doing is just hanging out with each other when you get some free time. Because that's what you're doing. Yeah, but we talk every night, Gage, so? I call that a habit. That don't make it anything. You're going to do that for 5 years? You're going to do that for 10 years? So if you're not prepared to let that person have a significant say in your children's life, if they're still being raised, why are you even dealing with it? Pre-engagement counsel. Excuse me. Sorry, allergies. Oh, I ain't done. I ain't done with you. I ain't done with you. I'm not done. I'm not done. But pretty much they're going to follow the same pattern. So in pre-engagement, the man pops the question. Ladies, you didn't see it coming. Okay, I get it. Well, you did, but you didn't, kind of thing. You never know for sure. And then he hits you with the question, and you, and you're about to faint, and the ring is so big, the blinkage is almost killing you. Your eyes go blind from the blinkage. Everybody's around you. Say yes, girl. Say yes. Say yes. Because y'all been dating for 8 years. Girl, you better say yeah. Better say yeah, girl. And you got that hesitation in your mind. Why? Why? Is it money? Is it because you got to go explain it to your children, grown or not grown? Maybe your grandchildren. Maybe your adopted children. Maybe, here's another one, maybe not as important as the first two. Maybe you've had some interrelational issues, interpersonal issues with Okay. You have some interpersonal issues with family. And you know, like, dad has been your support. He's carried you financially. So it's not just your own personal finance. The fact is, you've leaned extremely heavily on other people. Not just dad, whoever it is. Extremely heavily on other people. And so you've been dependent, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I've been there. I talk very candidly about my own life. You've been there. You've been there. You've had to rely on others. I was just there. Truth be told. Just there, literally, a couple of months ago. That's not an indication that I'm in any position to be married. Do you understand what I'm saying? Now, as the man, I'm not going to go get some ring and some, now there's nobody to do this to, but then go try to talk to them about marrying me, especially if I know I'm not going to want to be honest and say, basically, for the last several years, I've had to trust people, my family and others, friends, to help me to survive. I was full-time in ministry, and God provided. But I wasn't trying to date anybody exclusively, knowing financially speaking, I was not my only support. Men, do you hear me? It's one thing to live with your parents, but you're working a full-time job and you're carrying yourself financially and you're contributing to the bills in the house. It's another thing entirely to where you don't just live at home with your parents, but truth be told, they're carrying you. And you have the nerve to start talking about, I want to get married. So you can go from their couch to her bed? Is that all you want to do? Now, I know I sound like I'm about 70, but let me sound the way I want to sound. The reality of it is, you know, if you don't stop for a minute and think about this, you got a bunch of people supporting you financially. Oh, I'll go deeper. Maybe they don't support you financially. Watch this one. They support you emotionally. Now, you know I work in mental health, so I'm going to say this very respectfully and very carefully. The truth of the matter is, you cannot stand on your own 2 feet emotionally. And you know this. I'm not calling nobody's names because I don't know anybody that way. But if you know you can't stand on your own 2 feet emotionally, mentally, why do you think you're fit to get engaged or even to date exclusively? You know that as soon as the wind blows the wrong way, you breaking down and you're on your way to get some care and some counseling. You're not fit to handle the weight of an exclusive relationship. You're likely not fit to handle having to trust your future spouse, because any little thing they do that triggers you, that's the term, you're going to flip out. And you're going to tell them, look at what you're doing to me. You said you want to be with me, but you're making me so angry. If they can make you angry like that, if they can make you sad like that, you're not ready to handle marriage. And I'm going to do it again. If you're not ready to handle marriage, you're likely not ready to handle engagement. And if you're not ready to handle engagement, why would you even toy with exclusive dating? Why would you even toy with exclusive dating? Why would you do it? Why would you even waste your energy and therefore the energy of the person who is trying to talk to you and anyone else for that matter, if you know you have not stabilized emotionally, mentally, financially? And I think we got one more area and I'm done. And you know what it is. Emotional, mental, financial, physical. You've gone to the doctor, and the doctor said you've got some health issues. I'm not talking about prevailing health issues that are chronic. Those are just what they are. They're going to be there. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about health issues that can be remedied. I have high blood hypertension. That's a health issue that can be handled. It can be dealt with. It doesn't have to go and kill me or anyone else. But if I'm going to sit around, woe is me, how about diabetes? Here's another one. There is some level of management you can do with diabetes. I'm not talking about fibromyalgia. I'm not talking about chronic back pain due to degenerative discs. I'm not talking about arthritis. Even though arthritis, there's some measure of management. If you have health issues that can be managed, and you know they can be, you've gone to the doctor, or maybe you haven't gone to the doctor in a minute, and before that man asked you to marry, or before you ask her to marry you, did you go get a checkup? Let me talk to you fellas, especially who are in my age group. Have you gone and gotten your checkup? Have you gotten a tune-up? Have you let the professionals take you through it? Say, look, doc, I'm thinking about marrying this girl. We've been talking to each other for 6 months, a year now, and I want to make her my wife. I need you to give me the works. And I mean the works. And from STD to my heart, give me a CAT scan, an MRI. Check me from top to bottom, doc. And whatever the result is, let's start working on it. Let's put a plan in place. Why? When I ask her to marry me, or before I ask her to marry me, I need to be able to lay out my medical history. Gabe, are you serious? That's a little personal. Not to the person who you Netflixing and chilling with for 6 months to a year, to 2 years, to 3 years, who you have been introducing to your family. You've been introducing them to your coworkers. You bring up his or her name in every conversation, and you get all giddy, and you smile, and you say, oh, man, she really does make you, oh, she makes me happy. Have you told her about your bad heart? Hey, man, take it slow. Oh, he really makes me happy. Have you told him about your high blood pressure, girl? Hey, take it slow. Wait a minute. You already introducing him to your children? Wait a minute, man. You've already introduced her to your mama? Well, yeah, because, my mama said, I want to meet her because she's taking up all your time. Son, I got to meet her. And you should have stopped right then and said, you know what? We've gotten this serious, and I haven't even really let this woman in or this man in on what's really going on because maybe I haven't done my homework. So, Gabe, what you're suggesting then is these major categories before you accept a proposal or before you make one need to be examined by one's own self. Yes, that's pre-engagement counseling. That's pre-engagement counseling. In other words, counseling with the understanding that you are going to get this kind of counsel, medical counseling, financial counseling. See how I did that? Medical advice, counseling, financial advice, counseling. Words can be used interchangeably depending on the context. I'm giving you bona fide, you should be paying me right now some big dollars for this counseling. You're getting for free. Those major areas, you need to scour them. You need to be honest. I'm not saying just because you have debt, you can't get married. I'm not saying because you may have medical issues, you can't get married or get engaged for that matter. I'm not saying because you got some things in terms of family members, some dynamics with family members, you can't get married. Grandkids, moms, dads, sister, brothers. I'm not saying that. What if you got some property that falls under your finance, right? So if you got some property stuff that you need to get worked out, get that worked out. And worked out means to the point where you're ready to share it. Engagement. I think the proposal should follow that kind of conversation or conversation. Just my opinion. Just my opinion. That's why I'm not charging you. See how nice I am? But you need to have those very wonderful, yes, maybe tough, but wonderful conversations. You need to sit down at a wonderful, wonderful dinner. Don't Netflix and chill every single night you're together. No. Don't go to on a trip, a cruise every kind of thinking time you breathe. Don't sit on the phone for hours and hours and hours and talk simply about your day and never broach these conversations. And this is not a man's got to broach it, woman's got to broach it. Don't start that nonsense. Well, Gabe, I'll talk about it if he brings it up. Don't do that. You want to have these conversations. If that man is, and I don't mean to be rude, but I can only speak for what I know. If he is an African-American male, 45 and up, you need to ask him about his blood pressure. I said it. I said it. And I mean it. I work out 5 days a week. I got fish oil and vitamins and potassium and zinc and magnesium and all this stuff behind me. I have to do right by my blood pressure. Obviously, I've had to make changes in my diet. I'm broiling broccoli and salmon and all of this kind of stuff. Why? Because if one day I decide to want to get into an exclusive relationship, I want to be able to say to her in that wonderful conversation I'm telling you to have, dear, take a seat. Let's go out to eat. Okay, hon. Yeah, we're not going to stay at home and Netflix. Let's go out to eat. And as we sit there and dine, how is your meal? Oh, it's wonderful. Isn't it wonderful? Oh, it's wonderful. Well, I got some things I need to share with you. Not here's a ring with this ring I wed. No. We've been going exclusively now for 6 weeks, 6 months, whatever it is. And I got some things that I need to say. And I haven't even asked her to be my main squeeze, whatever y'all call it. Here's what my finances look like. What do you think? Well, Gabe, you ain't got to tell me this. No, yes, I do. Here's how things are with me and my son. If we were to get married or get engaged, how do you think you would fit into that dynamic? Well, I haven't thought about it. Well, here's what we'll do. Let's table the conversation, and I want you to think about it. How long do you think you need? Well, give me a couple of weeks. Okay, in 2 weeks, we're going to have dinner again, and we're going to talk about it. Well, Gabe, 2 weeks later, I don't know if I can. Now, look, I'm going to say it because you know you need me to say it. Well, Gabe, you know what? Your finances really don't bother me. I got some debt myself, and look, this is what I'm doing to pay my debt. But you know what? The dynamic between you and your son, I just don't see where I fit in that. You know, maybe a few years from now when he's older, you know what? Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Let's enjoy our dinner. And when that dinner is over, let's be friends. But Gabe, like I'm in the Matrix. But Gabe, but that's your boo thing. No. Because if I really want her to love me for me, I've got to be willing to share what y'all don't want to hear this stuff. I got to be willing to share what my life really is. And my debt is a part of my life. And my interaction with my son is very significant to me. What my job is, that's finance. I got to be willing to tell her, this is what my job looks like. This is what I plan to do in terms of education. This is how much time I'm likely not going to have for you. I love you, and I would like to have a future, but would you be willing to endure the next 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, whatever it is, however old you may be, of me pursuing my education? Would you be willing to have nights when I don't call you? When I don't text you? Because I'm knee deep in trying to get a paper done. When I can't have you come to my house because you are a distraction. You are a welcome distraction, but not when I'm going to school. Not when I'm working 3 shifts. I got to work 3 shifts for the next 6 weeks. I need you to be okay with yourself not seeing me like you normally do. Are you okay with that? Because if you're not okay, then we might not work. And if you can't have those kind of conversations, why are you even bothering? You heard it here first. Pre-engagement. And if you're already engaged and say, Gabe, it's too late, let me say this to you because it is on my write-up. People don't want to deal with the impact of breaking engagements. People don't even want to deal with the impact, and I'm curious as to what impact you're talking about. But people don't want to deal with being the bad guy or the bad girl. This is so serious, and having gone through divorce more than once, I'm begging you, I'm pleading with you, don't let yourself get into something so serious that's supposed to be the rest of your life or the rest of theirs without at least thinking about what I'm saying. Now, before I get off here, just because somebody decided to share a comment, Mr. Daniel said, stay away from religion and don't read the Bible. It is the book of the dead evil book that ruins your marriage. Unfortunately, sir, what I will say to you is you might want to have looked at my page a little bit more before you said that, because I know we haven't talked since high school, but I have been in ministry for 29 years. I started 1 year after high school. All right. So obviously I completely and utterly disagree, but let me give you reasons why. Stay with me a second, sir, and then we can talk after. One, because the Bible doesn't do anything. It's just a book. Excuse my intensity, but I get a little disturbed by people saying a book does something. A book doesn't do anything. The Bible doesn't do anything. The Bible doesn't do anything. The Bible sits on most people's coffee tables, Daniel. Be honest. Statistically speaking, people don't read their Bibles. Oh, they may be religious, Daniel, but they don't read their Bibles. Take it from someone who has been a pastor, who has been preaching and teaching scripture for 30 years, Daniel. The average person doesn't even know what the Bible says about marriage, about divorce, about Jesus, about God. How do I know? Because I teach it, because I preach it. I got well over 200 videos of me teaching it and preaching it properly. Let me prove my point and I'm done. Because it's one thing to read a book. It's another thing to read the book properly. And the problem with the Bible is it takes some skill to be able to properly understand it. And there are a lot of people, unfortunately, Daniel, I hate to tell you this, who are doing what I do, preaching and teaching it, and they don't understand it either. And the likelihood, Daniel, it wasn't the Bible that destroyed your marriage. It was some idiot, some fool who was not called by God to preach and teach, who tried to tell you or tried to tell your wife what should be and shouldn't be, and they ruined your marriage, not the Bible. Not the Bible, Daniel, because if you're going to blame the Bible, well, then you should blame any book and every book. How about a biography? Because the Bible has biography in it. How about a history book, Daniel? You have not really examined the scriptures. I know you haven't, because you wouldn't have made the statement you made. You wouldn't have made the statement, sir, because clearly you are demonstrating you don't actually know what the Bible says, especially since the Bible promotes marriage. It is the singular book that promotes marriage more than any book on the planet, and we know this to be true. The husband of one wife. Don't make me start quoting scripture, Daniel. Don't make me do it. I'll do it. Genesis chapter 2. That's a promotion of marriage. Leave mother and father and cleave. Don't blame God. Don't blame the Bible for broken people. Don't blame God. Don't blame marriage, or don't blame God, or even the marriage institution. For those of you who are saying, Gabe, I'll never get married because marriage is the issue. Marriage is not your issue. And I'm not picking on Daniel, and I'm not picking on you. You are misguided, and that, trust me, I've been there. Here I am, a preacher, and I've gone through divorce. How is that possible? Because I didn't get it right. If you're going to blame anybody, blame the people. Don't blame other things. Blame yourselves. If your marriage fell apart like mine have, it's because of the people. It's not because of the Bible. It's not because of the biographies and the history books. It ain't because of religion. It's because the people in the marriage did not get the right information. And when they tried to come together and when they tried to stay together, it didn't work because they didn't have the right information. My final point on this, Daniel, if you agree with anything I've said, I can support everything I've said tonight from Scripture. And if you want to know what book I'm referring to, Proverbs. Wisdom, you're going to make me do it. Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom, and in all of your getting, get an understanding. Proverbs chapter 4, verse 7. That's Bible. And all I did tonight was give you wisdom. Don't tell me the Bible destroys marriage when I just gave you 4 points to help you not even get into a bad one. That ain't the Bible's fault. That's our fault. I'm done. Have a great night. Till next week.